Check in with Mike Coppinger, boxing insider for The Athletic. Mike, first and foremost, welcome to the hometown of the Bomb Squad and Mr. Deontay Wilder.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Travis. You stole my line about the snow, but I actually was in Alabama once for Deontay Wilder's title defense against Chris Arreola. That was a vicious knockout, as have most of Wilder's been, and it's been a great atmosphere so far. I got here yesterday morning, and just in time for the press conference, finally the guys were heated, the niceties were gone, and we have a big fight in Vegas. Great atmosphere.
Yeah, that's where I was going to start, Mike. I mean, you've been around these fights. You know what that legitimate buzz is, especially for a fight in Vegas. Is that what you're sensing here in the lead up? Is it legitimate buzz? Is it maybe a return to even the golden era, not the glory days where, you know, it was the biggest thing in one of the biggest towns in the United States?
I've covered dozens of fights in Vegas, and the special ones always have a different palpable buzz, right? It's crowded when you walk through the MGM. There's people talking about the fight everywhere, and this fight has exactly that. We have two different ring setup. Actually, no, three different ring setup in the MGM. We have Fox with a live set. They've been doing Speak for Yourself from MGM. We have SportsCenter doing live hits from the MGM with their own boxing ring. And then we have another ring in the lobby. So it's a ton of commotion here, and this is definitely a big fight feel, the biggest I've felt since Canelo Alvarez fought Gennady Golovkin in the rematch in September 2018. And that fight did 1 million pay-per-view buys, and I believe this fight's going to hit that plateau as well.
Yeah, I think how this fight is sort of graded when you take everything into account. Some of the stuff that we're certainly talking about, you know, you typically look at judges' cards. If it comes down to it, this fight may not come down to the judges' cards on Saturday night. But pay-per-view buys, man, is that where it ultimately is going to come down to how this fight stacks up with some of the others?
Outside of the ring, that's the best barometer of just how successful this was from a business standpoint. Remember, Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury command massive guarantees, well over $25 million. So they need to do a lot of pay-per-view buys to break even for this promotion and ensure that we keep getting these great fights, especially these rare collaborations between two network giants in ESPN and Fox. So I think if they do over 1 million, people involved are going to be pretty happy.
You talked about the press conference yesterday and sort of the niceties going by the boards there. You know, these two have been, I would say, borderline chummy in maybe the run-up to this rematch. But there was a significant shift in that yesterday. Joe Tessitore mediating, I guess you could say, that press conference. How much would you say of that yesterday, though? I mean, you had Deontay going deep. He went in on Tyson when it comes to Tyson's mental health history, his addiction history. It was pretty personal there. But how much of that is selling pay-per-views? How much of that is maybe these fighters really ramping up their competitive juices with just a few days left before the fight?
I do think when it's all said and done, these guys do like each other and respect each other. Not that they're like best friends, they're going to hang out, but they're similar, right? They've both overcome a lot. They're two outlandish characters and two great heavyweights. And I do think part of that shoving match and all those antics yesterday were to get a final push to sell pay-per-view buys, because, of course, these guys make more money if more pay-per-views are sold. But I think also in another way, they're ultra-competitive guys, and they're probably sick of seeing each other at this point. They've spent so much time along each other that they're almost like a married couple at this point, the way they were fighting.
You recently spent some time with Tyson Fury out there in Vegas. I know he's pretty much set up shop in Vegas these days. You did a deep dive on Tyson. You know, for a guy with his background, though, Mike, how far behind the curtain were you able to go with the Gypsy King?
Pretty far, I believe. I watched Tyson Fury's spar 8 rounds at Bob Arum's top-ranked gym. I went to Fury's house for 2 days, and I found him to be pretty honest and thoughtful in his answers. He told me, you know, look, in front of the cameras, he keeps saying that Deontay Wilder's a bum and that he's crude and throws windmill punches. When we were talking, he was gushing over how underrated Deontay Wilder is how impressed he is with Deontay Wilder's patience, even when he's losing rounds, like he did against Luis Ortiz, and the way he sets up those big right hands.
We know that Tyson is coming off a fight in which he got a little bit more than he probably expected with Otto Weiland, and that cut specifically over the right eye that required nearly 50 stitches. We've talked about this week here in Tuscaloosa. Deontay, a little bit of a favorite, a slight favorite in the fight. Is there concern as it relates? Is there major concern as it relates to that situation with the eye and the potential for that opening back up? And do you think Deontay, though, stylistically, at the same time, is a fighter who can maybe take advantage of a situation like that?
Tyson Fury was concerned enough that he wisely hired Jacob Stitch Duran, considered one of the best cut men in the sport. And look, when you're around Tyson Fury, you can see that the scar tissue is there. You can't have 47 stitches, suture wounds, and not have scar tissue a few months later. So he is going to be more susceptible to a cut. How worried is he? On fight night, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that Deontay Wilder is the kind of guy that's going to pinpoint all his punches and try to open it up his cut. Because if Wilder lands on a right-hand flush anyway, it's probably night-night.
How did you see the first fight between these two? It seemed like the overwhelming majority had it scored in Tyson's favor, even with that massive knockdown there in the 12th round. Did you see it that way, or did you see it as sort of the even fight in which it was ultimately judged?
I was ringside for that fight, and I thought Tyson Fury definitely won. Deontay Wilder had the 2 10-8 rounds 9 and round 12 with the knockdowns. But I thought Tyson Fury won every other round. He was outboxing Deontay Wilder. And I know a lot of my colleagues who were ringside thought the first 4 rounds, not much happened. They gave some of those rounds to Wilder, and I didn't. So I don't think it was a robbery, but maybe a little generous to Deontay Wilder. But I don't think the second fight's going to the card.
Deontay says he expects to weigh in tomorrow, I guess, somewhere in the neighborhood of 230. That would be up 15-plus pounds from where he was at for the first fight in 2018. Meanwhile, Tyson aiming to get up to 270-ish, I guess, from 255 in that neighborhood. Deontay was lighter in that first half. Deontay was coming off a right hand injury. Looking at Tyson and perhaps, again, the big size advantage he could have in this fight. Well, do you think any of that really matters, though, when they get in the ring Saturday night, Mike?
It really depends on Tyson Fury's strategy. In the first fight, he was trying to box from distance, move around, and give Wilder different angles. But I believe there's a good chance Tyson Fury goes the other way now that he's with a Kronk trainer and tries to be a little more aggressive, fight Deontay Wilder on the inside, smother his shots, and really use all those 270 pounds to lean on Wilder. Wilder has small legs. Why not lean on him? He throws big looping shots. Why not fight him on the inside?
You alluded to sort of that overhaul in the corner for Tyson Fury. Do you believe that was an overreaction after that last fight in which it was a struggle to keep him, able to complete that fight with that eye injury, with that cut? Or do you think that's something that needed to happen from the Fury perspective?
I'm not sure if it needed to happen. I thought Ben Davison did a nice job. But, look, maybe Fury, after struggling with a guy we didn't know much about, thought, all right, I really need to make a change. He claims that the reason he made the change was to really put some power on those punches. And, look, if he's telling the truth, we're going to really get an even better fight. And the first fight was a classic.
So you talk about Deontay, arguably, I think inarguably, the biggest puncher in boxing right now. Of course, of his 42 wins, 41 have come by knockout. Based on the styles and the different approaches, the technical abilities between these two guys, does Deontay have to knock Tyson Fury out Saturday night to win the fight? And for Tyson, conversely, what exactly is the margin of error for him knowing that Deontay's got that capability?
I don't think Tyson Fury has any margin for error. I think he has to maintain focus for all 36 minutes. He lost focus a couple of times in the first fight, and we saw what happens. And we've seen what occurs anytime someone takes their eye off Deontay Wilder. It looks like it's kind of like Deontay Wilder lulls you to sleep, right? He doesn't throw many punches. He's rather economical. And then all of a sudden, bam, the left hand blinds you, the right hand follows, and you're out. So I think there's very little margin for error. And to answer the other part of the question, Deontay Wilder, could he win on points? Sure, but I think it's much more likely that he scores the knockout.
A lot of talk from Tyson about a second-round knockout for him of Deontay on Saturday night. Can you envision that scenario actually taking place, though?
Sounds a lot like bluster and pre-fight hype. I would be quite shocked if that happens. But I wouldn't be shocked if Tyson Fury knocks out Deontay Wilder. We've heard Deontay Wilder refer to Tyson Fury's fists as pillows, but that's just more of what I just said, bluster. We saw Fury buckle Wilder on numerous occasions in the first fight, particularly in the 12th round following the knockdown. So, look, these guys are, when you're 270 pounds or even 250 pounds, you're not meant to take those kind of punches. Anybody can get knocked out in the heavyweight division.
So who do you like in the fight, Mike? You like Tyson? You like Deontay? Who you picking here?
I'm going with your guy, Deontay Wilder. I just think that he's going to land that right hand sooner or later. I think it's so hard to stay away from that punch for 36 minutes. And, look, he's the biggest puncher in boxing, and that right hand is dynamite. I think he scores the victory, and hopefully we get another great fight, set up a trilogy over the summer.
How does Anthony Joshua sit in all this after Saturday night?
Joshua's looking forward to a June fight with Kubrat Pulev in England. And it's funny, right? Because Joshua's kind of the odd man out right now, even though many people think he's the guy. But I think that the winner of this fight is going to be the unquestioned ruler of the heavyweight division, at least until they meet Anthony Joshua. Look, the Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder have a rematch clause. We get a good fight, we're going to get a third fight. And after that, we need the winner of that trilogy to meet Anthony Joshua later this year and crown an undisputed heavyweight champion.
No doubt. And, hey, if nothing else, Saturday night, right? The ring walks and entrances for both these guys should be worth the $79.99 if you're talking pay-per-view buy, right?
That's another reason I just can't wait for Saturday. It's one thing to have two great fighters, but it makes it so much better, doesn't it, when you have two guys with the flair for the dramatics. These guys love to entertain, and that's pushing this fight to new heights. And I hope the buzz is as big in Tuscaloosa and across Alabama as it is in Vegas.
They're fired up. They're fired up. And you're right. No idea what Deontay might come up with. Something straight out of a Marvel movie is what I'm guessing right now. There you go, Mike. We'll send you out with that. How about that? That kind of tells you where we're at here in the Tuscaloosa area in advance of Saturday night. Hey, Mike, great stuff at The Athletic. If you haven't, give Mike a follow on Twitter at Mike Coppinger. That's Coppinger. Does some great podcast stuff too. Search your Apple iTunes pod for one involving with SI, Chris Mannix. You got one of those right now with Mike. And Mike also does his own podcast with his colleague there at The Athletic, the Pug and Copp Boxing Show with The Athletic. You can find that on Apple iTunes, wherever you consume podcasts as well. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the fight.